It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. As we begin, what in the world did he say? Friday. Gary, how are you?
Well, you're the old timer here. I'm the newcomer.
Yeah, are you?
Yes, I'm the newcomer. Now that's a new word from the White House for illegal immigrants.
Oh, newcomers. Yeah.
Newcomers. Yes,
right. That's
the new one. And remember, boy, we went through it. At first, it was the official title still legally is, and that's why you see it is used by the Border Patrol still is illegal alien.
Yeah.
So it was. I can't remember the exact order anymore. It's evolved so much.
Yeah.
It was illegal alien, and then it was illegal immigrant, and then it was undocumented immigrant, then undocumented persons.
Right. Yeah.
And then we got to what was the one that they were using in California?
Temporarily displaced traveler.
Yes. Temporary displaced traveler. And now we've evolved this White House to newcomer. Well, The one thing that we did learn, except for the president, the White House, which is the president, the White House coming out and stating that sanctuary cities should cooperate with ICE, that didn't go over well.
Yeah.
Everything else was a complete disaster that shows that the president just wants to move further left. It's like they don't, and in fact, when it came out, with his performance yesterday, talking about climate change and Neanderthals who don't believe in climate change, and the media obviously knowing that he went to an area where there was no problem with illegal immigrants.
Yeah.
And then let me play two of these audio cuts here. This is a way that the mainstream media is covering it. Listen to this now. This is the first one is from CBS.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
All right.
As president, Trump severely restricted asylum and required migrants to await their court hearings in Mexico. When President Biden took office, he reversed those policies. But
right there,
yeah.
CBS, he reversed those policies.
Yep.
The White House claims they've never done that.
Yeah, right.
We didn't do anything. This is all Trump. And then here's NBC. All right, here we go.
Should President Biden have gone to a different part of the border?
I believe so. I think it probably would have been best to go somewhere that's very busy, like Arizona or California.
A record 8.6 million migrants have crossed into the U.S. since President Biden took office. The Border Patrol Union telling us Mr. Biden should not have reversed Trump border policies.
They were very effective for us as Border Patrol agents in securing the border.
And NBC News.
There you go.
Yep.
You've got now the mainstream media saying Biden reversed the Trump policies. That's the White House and Democrats have denied that over and over again. When I saw that yesterday, I went, okay, that's a huge move. That's a huge evolution of the media to come out and so bluntly, because what they're saying, they're communicating is what's happening at the border is Biden's fault.
Yep.
He created this, as we have said from day one.
Yep. This is all done by him, and now they're this idea playing like, well, we didn't reverse anything. Well, we can't do anything. The GOP has our hands tied.
Yep.
It's insane.
And I look at it yesterday and the way he looked in some of the pictures, this Biden,
man. Yeah.
And I'm shaking my head going, there is no self-awareness to do what they're doing, which is put Biden out there every day. They're putting Harris out there every day to follow up to Trump on the border. It's pure panic right now to send out differing messages, to send out the message that as they did yesterday, that not that we're going to do. The issue came out, was it late last week when it was, or 7 days ago, when the president, leaked, I guess, from the White House to all the mainstream media that the president might put in an executive order to stop the flow at the border. It's like, whoa, is he going to move to the right? Well, that's not happening. That didn't happen.
No.
In fact, they went more left in his visit to the border as the White House was telling sanctuary cities to cooperate with ICE. I mean, it's pure panic. The right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. The only conclusion I can come to is they're panicking big time. And so they're just going, we've got no other choice. If we're quiet, we're dead. If we're not quiet, we're dead.
Yeah. And you can't go without saying something, but everything you say does damage. This is the conundrum that lives on many issues on the left right now. You know, I was thinking about the shrinkflation. By the way, Gary, got some complaints from our people who podcast, our great fans who podcast, that they don't get a full 5 hours. That's shrinkflation because the podcast version is shorter than the broadcast version. It's shrinkflation. So just deal with it. Sorry, we didn't cause it. We can blame that on Biden.
But our content is all there.
It's all there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that. That was
Well,
good.
it's because they hear us saying, the full 5 hours, and are we? Someone wrote me, "Am I missing any part of the show?" Well,
really? Okay.
Yeah, and I said, no. I said all the content is there. We use technology that we got from NASA to condense it down into a shorter period. But you look at all these things that are on the table with the left, and you that whole shrinkflation thing. I was thinking about it today because I was having to, I went out and I was running errands from early morning until early afternoon. It was a very busy day. Got out and early voted, and it. By the end of the day, it was like I had a sampling of a lot of things that were going on. Had to register our new RV, so I had to go pay the tax on it from the, buying it and that whole thing. So I had to pay some county taxes and vote today or yesterday. And so I was experiencing the full gamut and then doing some shopping, experiencing what's going on with inflation once again.
We'll get to that.
Oh, my gosh. And it's incredible. It feels, and what it feels like, too, and it's not because of shrinkflation, it's because of inflation. My wife and I have both done shopping. She'll go and have her shopping list on things, she's going to prepare and has a number of things. And then I've got some other things that I need, and I go do my shopping and all of that. And, we have separate schedules. So when we meet in the middle and talk about how much each other spent, it just becomes, it's like, my gosh, how in the world, we've been asking the question, she and I, to each other, how in the world are our grown kids and their kids going to afford to live? Because it is not getting any better. It's only getting worse. The answer to that question is very clear. You've got to restore the buying power, and you can only do that with a massive expansion. But long term, we're going to have to, short term, we're going to have to get on top of our spending as a nation. We have to control that. There are those that believe that the spending power will never return. Never is a pretty big word, but I can't tell them they're wrong. I don't know. I don't know when it will return. And all of these things where you try and, the Biden administration tries to, the border, inflation, they can't go without saying something because they look arrogant, which for Joe Biden isn't hard. But every time they open their mouth about something, they step right in the middle of it. And it's just getting worse by the day. The question is, what is the response of the American people? What are people thinking? I was sitting there in the tax office yesterday, and I'm thinking, and it's one of those things where you take your ticket and then they call your number and you're sitting there about 45 minutes. It was no big deal. People were very nice. But I'm looking around, sampling of the city of Dallas, basically, in that office, waiting to, do whatever the task they're there to do, the citizens of Dallas. And I'm thinking, man, I would love to interview each of them. Hey, what's your thought on the economy? What's your thought? What have you noticed about inflation? What have you noticed about at the grocery store? What have you noticed? What are your thoughts on the border? We're a border state. What do you think's going on? What, in your mind, what's going on? Because most people don't sit around and think about it and do tons of research on it. They're out working, and they get home, and the last thing they want to do is think about the world's problems. So they're not wonks. The majority of people aren't. But I think they have a great grasp on what's going on because they're impacted by everything, and they do have an opinion. And I was looking around that office, and I thought to myself, man, if I could just sit down and talk to each one of these individuals, what's your concern about the future? What do you think is right or wrong right now with any of these items that's going on? And I would love to know that, because I don't know where the left is going to be November 5th. Do they show up for Biden? Because I think the hatred for Trump thing right now, not that it doesn't exist, it certainly exists. I don't know that it's as vibrant as it once was, and maybe that's only temporary. Maybe on November 5th, I'm proven wrong. Maybe it's more vibrant than ever when it comes to the turnout of the voter on the left. I don't know. But you can't ignore the issues. And the question comes down to, you're going to let your disdain for one guy allow this nation to go on for another 4 years down this road? Keep in mind, it's been just over 3 years and a month and a few days since Biden took office. That's a relatively short period of time in our nation's history, and look how much damage has been done.
I took the poll the other day and brought it to everybody, which showed what Americans view as the top 4 problems. And then I saw yesterday there was another poll that was out. What are the polling numbers? The top 4 issues that Americans are concerned about, which all relate to government, as we brought up before. Which which were it was the border, the government, inflation, and the economy.
Yeah.
Those are the top 4 issues.
Right.
The top 4 dominant issues. Every single one, landslide numbers for Trump. And they asked the question, it wasn't who could do it better, Republicans or Democrats, or just hitting Biden. It was who could do better. Landslide numbers for Trump. Absolutely landslide numbers.
Well, and that's it. You and I have covered this for many years, and we've seen it before. But I think it's different than it was even in 2012 when Mitt Romney, even as a moderate, on the issues, everything was on Mitt Romney's side. Of course, that didn't work out on Election Day for Mitt Romney in 2012, but it's very different because many things were still in the abstract in 2012.
Yeah. And
they're not today.
No, they're not.
It's reality over and over again that's in the face of everyone, and we have to deal with it. There's really no way to turn around. It's interesting on the ballot, some propositions in our state, as I early voted yesterday morning. And one of them was, would you like the state of Texas to eliminate property taxes without affecting your taxes overall? Well, yeah. Now, ask me if I actually believe they can get that done. No, but I voted yes. I would like that. Of course, I would like that.
Well, you're going to.
Would you like to pay a lot less in taxes? Let me think about it.
Well, as we have said with the property tax reduction from last year.
Yeah.
In my entire life,
I've
never seen anything like that in any state I've ever lived in, ever.
Right.
Just so people know, I basically got now, some of it had to do with the fact that I'm over 65.
Right.
Right,
Your senior exemption.
Right, the senior exemption, and then the other thing where it goes down every year.
Right,
but
it's contracting now every year.
But the contraction itself is something. I mean, it may exist somewhere. I don't know about it. And I've never lived in a state that's done the contraction number 1 when you get to be older, because that's one of the things. I remember when I was living in New York, and I said, this is one thing people don't talk about, that they're, elderly lose their homes because they can't pay their property taxes.
Right.
Because they get on a fixed income, and their property values keep going up, and their property insurance keeps going up, and they don't have any income anymore. Yeah. And I said, that's just, flat out wrong.
Right.
And I just, when you look at when you look at what Texas did, and then they had the property tax reduction, I mean, my God, I saw between a 20 and 25% reduction in my property tax last year.
Yeah, I did too. I just reviewed my my escrow on my mortgage. Unlike you, I still have a mortgage, and I was reviewing it on a couple of items, insurance, and well, really, those are the two items: your property taxes and your homeowner's insurance. And so when I was looking at property taxes, I was like, look at that, man, I love it, because the reduction for me, I forget what the percentage is, but it was a significant percentage. And I'm not a senior like you are. I must be like 35, 36 years old. And I don't know. It's none of my business. But it was several $100s that my tax bill went down. And I'm like, wow, that's great. And look, I love the idea that the state of Texas wants to look at doing away with property taxes. You and I have issued our concerns over the years. I think even before you came on this show, I'm sure you were issuing your concerns, as a lot of us were, about property taxes and everything else. And once you get to the point like you are now, where you have full equity in your home, and but you're still going to be paying the taxes. I mean, insurance is one thing to protect the asset, but the taxes over and over again, and it is a totally different discussion. But
they're going to get it somewhere, and if
exactly, and there's going to be an impact.
If the goal is to make it stealth, through some form of business tax or franchise tax or whatever,
it's not what you do; it's how you do it.
Right. Then what you worry about is accountability. But if businesses still wish to come here, because overall the cost is still low, well, then that's something that the public will buy.
Right.
866-90 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. It's not always easy to spring back from the harsh days of winter to warmer months ahead. From de-icing chemicals to hidden debris underneath snow and ice, winter conditions can do serious damage to your truck. Here's a must-do maintenance check to help you minimize downtime and stay rolling. Have your batteries tested and inspect your electrical system for any exposed connections, wires, or butt connectors. Get any exposed components repaired immediately, as the acidic nature of highway de-icers will erode any exposed connections or wires in no time at all.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Coming up on the bottom of the hour, some inflation numbers out yesterday. Inflation keeps growing slowly, but it keeps growing. It's something that you and I talked about a couple of years ago. We, with inflation happening, we said, is this going to be like the 70s? Does the administration really want to cure inflation? And I saw John Carney from Breitbart on Fox yesterday, I think it was on Fox Business, saying the exact same thing that we've said for the longest time. And nobody really says this, but the spending is out of control. Yeah. The spending is what caused inflation, the incredible spending that we did, and we're looking at, again, another $1.5 to $2 trillion deficit this year. And the administration, the Democrats, still want to spend more and more and more and more, which is borrowed money, borrowed money, borrowed money.
Yep.
And he made the point that the Biden administration is actually hurting what the Fed is attempting to do because they won't rein in spending. Right. And so you're not going to get inflation under control.
So the Fed's moving interest rates up. Now, I think the Fed should be, on that point, the Fed should have been more aggressive, but the Fed's moving interest rates up, and the spending continues, so inflation keeps going up, and we have higher interest rates.
Yes.
Autonomous individuals in unison. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley on Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. Listen when and where you want. You can't listen live overnight. All right, here is the Border Patrol Union president yesterday, Brandon Johnson.
What we expected, and the reason why Border Patrol agents are so upset about this visit is because he's not going to any location where he's going to be able to evaluate what he needs to do. What are the policies? What are the programs that need to go into place? And he's not going to be able to do that in Brownsville. If he would have went to San Diego, if he would have went to Tucson, if he would have come out here to Eagle Pass, if he would have went to the trouble locations, he would have been able to get a little bit more understanding and evaluate the situation to come up with it. He's not going to do that. He can't do that. He's repeatedly said that he doesn't have executive authority to control this, and if he turned around and he did something today, then everybody would recognize that the past 3 years are all on him.
Are all on him is how that ended.
Yeah.
Which is what we said last week. We said when they floated that out. And that was floated. That was a trial balloon floated by the administration because all the mainstream media was carrying it.
Right.
That U.S. officials say that Biden is considering an executive order that would stop the flow of migrants at the border. You and I went, well, so he's going to try to do that, and in order to do that, he would have to go back to the Trump policies. In order to do that, we said he can't do that. This isn't going to go anywhere. And we come now to a week later, and it's further left is where he's decided to go. The White House coming out and saying newcomers going to a place, and everyone was talking. The mainstream media, everybody's talking about why isn't he going to a place where there's a problem?
Right. Well, and
I was thinking he might go to Buffalo because it's on the northern border.
Oh, no. Yeah, it's a good point.
The other thing is, did you see the looks on the faces of the Border Patrol agents I'm sure were told, you need to be standing behind Biden.
Right.
I think I saw I watched like a 5-minute portion of it. I saw the one woman to his left, if you're looking at him, that had like a little kind of a smile smirk, but everybody else, you didn't see anything. It seemed, my perception was they were angry and they weren't happy that they had to be there, and their pictures on national television were with the president on the border.
Well, that's it. Look, they all know, and I'm sure they would say this. Look, we follow orders, and that's what we do. But at the end of it, then you're part of the propaganda.
Yeah.
This isn't a situation where, because often you'll have a case where a president will make an appearance, especially during a campaign season, and you fill the background with friendlies, right? And I thought to myself when I saw the images yesterday and some of the video, I thought, is it possible to find any friendlies within the Border Patrol? Ones who say, no, I think this administration's doing the right thing. I can't imagine that you could find even one. Those agents are now not Border Patrol, but border processors. And I use the word rubber stamp. I think I used it on the air the other day, but I was talking to a friend of mine, and I said, it's just a rubber stamping there at the border now. It's just, boom, 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 there you go. And I started wondering, well, how long before, if this is to continue, how long before they just actually literally get a rubber stamp and just start going boom, boom, boom to make it even faster? By the way, when they came out with the Biden comment, we're going to stop the flow over the border, and I thought, what are you going to do? Send them all to Mexico City, put them on the plane, go straight to New York City? It would relieve the pressure at the border, but not solve the problem, because technically they would still be crossing the border.
So here we have Senator Chris Murphy, and basically bringing up the argument that the left and the open border activists were using 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
He was on with Anderson Cooper.
Well, I mean, first of all, this invasion rhetoric is just absolutely disgusting. It's xenophobic. It's racist. Go to Ukraine. You see what an actual invasion looks like.
Is that going to work?
Nope. No, it's not. No, it isn't. You could have gotten away with that years ago. If someone had, if you had a Republican governor, or if you had a conservative pundit say this is an invasion years ago, in the abstract, they could have said, oh, come on, this is hyperbole, this is racist rhetoric. It's an all-out invasion.
By the way, I'm watching here just some video where Biden was done speaking, and the politicians around him are clapping. You don't see one Border Patrol agent at all. And Biden's looking at them, and they sort of, a couple of the women in front sort of like, give a tenth of a smile. You see their lips move a little bit, like just acknowledging him because he's looking right at them.
Right.
Nobody else. Stoned. It looks like they're in a trance.
Yeah. Stone-faced.
Stone-faced trance. And nobody's clapping. No one.
Yeah. I can't imagine. I have a number of friends who serve in the Border Patrol. A few of them I've talked to in recent years. Others I haven't. But just try and imagine that task right now. Because here's the thing. Those of us who spent years of our youth in Del Rio, many who were from Del Rio, like the former chief, Raul Ortiz, who was on Fox News yesterday. You and I discussed that in the pre-show meeting. There were, for those from Del Rio, it seems there were two career choices. Many of them became teachers, and a number of them became Border Patrol agents. And for anyone who joined the Border Patrol, the stories are endless of, you go in, you believe in the mission. It is, and I've always seen it as, man, it's got to feel like bop-a-mole. It's got to feel like you're, just spinning wheels here. You're not getting anything done. Then, of course, they would tell you, well, look at, this seizure that we had of drugs. Look at how we were able to catch the cartel doing this. Look at the number of people we were able to apprehend. They take those jobs very seriously. The mission is to the core, by all accounts, with those in the Border Patrol. So for a Joe Biden to step up and, then all of a sudden you're standing behind him, knowing this is the guy that's making your life a living hell right now, I can't imagine how hard that was just to keep that stone face.
You talked about Raul Ortiz, who the former Border Patrol chief. You know him. You grew up.
Yeah,
with
we
him.
went to high school together.
He said yesterday on Fox, never talked in his entire time as Border Patrol chief, never talked to the vice president, never talked to the president.
Right.
Ever.
Yeah. And he was at one of the Trump State of the Union addresses. If you remember the one where Rush Limbaugh was recognized by then President Trump.
Yeah.
Right behind him, and the video's all over YouTube, but sitting right behind him is Raul Ortiz in uniform. And so I'm assuming he did talk to Trump a couple of times, along the way. We've never asked him that directly, but it's interesting that that seems to be that degree of separation, or as Hunter Biden would say, at an arm's length. Part of the deposition or the answers that he gave, of this. And that's basically that separation and that plausible deniability. Biden knows he's not in favor with the Border Patrol agents. He knows that. And so what are you going to say to a chief like Raul Ortiz, who was born and raised in Del Rio, went through the ranks over a period of decades, was true to the job, and made it all the way to the top? What are you going to say
to a guy like that or any of those agents. There's nothing you can say.
Let's play more from Brandon Judd yesterday. By the way, they had the representatives from the Border Patrol Union all over the place yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, they were out there. I at least saw at least 3 spokespeople out there.
Yeah.
Brandon Judd, though, just brutal at times.
Yeah.
Going after this administration. Here it is.
President Trump is going down to the border because he wants to go down there. That's what it is. And President Biden is going down because he has to. For the last 3 years, he's been saying that the border is secure, that there is no issues. Obviously, everyone in America knows that that is a complete lie. And from day one of this administration, the border has been in chaos just on his rhetoric. Then he got rid of policies and it made it worse. And right now he's going down, pretty much it's the Hail Mary to save, the rest of the campaign because, he wants to get reelected. But if you really wanted to see where the areas were, he'd come down to Arizona or he'd go to San Diego. Arizona, just Tucson sector alone is averaging over 1,500 people a day.
I'm sorry, that was another representative of the Border Patrol Union. That was not Brandon Judd. So,
yeah, but, this is what I love about the union because, obviously, the union representing those agents, this is where you get the truth. This is where you get the story of what they're going through.
But what a horrible day.
Yeah.
What a horrible day for Biden yesterday.
It's like you and the damage done. Again, you can't ignore. They know they can't ignore it. They certainly couldn't let Trump go to the border where he's welcomed by those agents without making an appearance, and he just spelled it out there. Trump wanted to go there. Biden had to go there. He was forced to go. And what, his only his second trip to the border?
Trump should go every week.
Oh, my
Until
gosh.
November.
Oh, my gosh. It would that's actually a brilliant idea.
Go every week to the border.
Just go and do.
Next week, go to California.
Yeah,
the
I
week
was
after,
going
go
to
to Arizona. Right.
Texas,
Right.
and because he is welcomed by those agents, because they know his policy helps them. They know that when he was president, his policy helped them, and if he's president again, it will again. And there's no way around it. It's a very simple equation. And if he did that, oh my gosh, if he was going on a regular basis, there's no way Biden's going to go.
I know.
He's not going to go on a regular basis.
And then let's play the climate change quote from Biden at the border.
Here we go.
All right, here we go.
The idea there's no such thing as climate change. I love that, man. I love some of my Neanderthal friends.
Yeah. Hey, it was former President Trump who suggested the solar panel thing for the wall. So what are you talking about? You didn't ever suggest it.
Trump is more pro-climate change than you were. He wanted solar panels on the wall.
He's actually talking about real ideas. What are you doing, Jack? This is so easy.
I'm assuming the context was they're crossing because of climate change.
Yeah, because
I'm assuming that was had to be the tie-in, unless he was just drifting off. I didn't see the full context of it. You really don't know.
But they have used that before on the whole asylum thing. They're coming here, because of climate change.
I knew we actually didn't have this discussion, and we didn't have it on the air or off the air. But I knew it was going to be a disaster, and I think you did too.
Yeah, there's no way it won't be, right?
You just knew it was going to be a disaster. You knew Trump was going to own that day.
Yeah.
On an issue that Trump absolutely owns.
Yes.
And like I said, no self-awareness at all.
None.
And the fact of Biden going down there highlighted that Trump was down there too.
No, that's a
comparison,
great point.
The comparison was made. If Trump went alone, well, the media, a lot of it might have ignored it.
Right.
But when you have CBS and NBC saying, because of it, it's like, whoa, this is juicy. Biden's there, Trump's there. Let's make the comparison.
And CBS, pointing out that, what Biden reversed.
CBS and NBC.
And NBC pointing out the reversing policy.
Yep.
That's got to hurt, man.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I had to go to the Babylon Bee. Just look at some of the headlines here for the week. Ronna McDaniel hired as DNC chair due to extensive experience defeating Republicans. Here's another one. Oh, wow, this is brutal. Progressives open suicide hotline that tells people to go ahead and kill themselves so long as it's for Palestine.
Wow.
Hunter Biden jealous after Don Jr. receives envelope of white powder. Liberal in critical condition after hearing slightly different viewpoint.
That's funny.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Made it to Friday. All right.
Yeah.
Reading here from Breitbart and John Carney. See him all the time at Fox Business.
Right.
When and I think he's pretty good. You know, I think he's, I've spent a lot of time, and I think he's, normally I agree with him.
Yeah.
But he writes, when Federal Reserve officials met last month, they told us they needed greater confidence that inflation is moving sustainably down to 2% before they start reducing interest rates. It would be an understatement to say that the inflation data released yesterday are unlikely to produce an increase in that confidence. Inflation is rising, and the underlying indicators of price pressure suggest this is unlikely to reverse soon. The Department of Commerce released its report on personal income and expenditures on Thursday. This includes the latest calculation of the Personal Consumption Expenditure Price Index, which is the measure the Federal Reserve uses in its 2% target and forecasts that get published every other meeting in the Summary of Economic Projections. The PCE Price Index rose by 0.3% in January, an annualized inflation rate of 4.2%. Core PCI inflation, which excludes food and energy, rose by 0.4%, which annualizes to a 5.1% inflation rate. Both measures show an acceleration of inflation from the month prior. Headline PCE inflation rose at its fastest clip since September of last year and has been climbing now for 2 straight months. The core index also has been climbing for 2 straight months and rose at its fastest rate since January of last year.
Yeah, it went from 0.1 to 0.4.
And you even have Wall Street was expecting a rise in inflation after the hotter than expected consumer price and producer price indexes, so the results did not come as a shock, but it is useful to keep in mind that this is not what analysts were expecting before we got the other January inflation reports. So, interestingly, the wedge between CPI and PCE inflation vanished in January. Before rounding, the core CPI actually came in a bit hotter than core PCE last month. Let's start with goods inflation. At his press conference in January, Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell pointed out that a lot of last year's disinflation came from actual deflation in the prices of goods. While this was welcome, the Fed had actually expected this to occur much earlier, and its delay was one of the reasons the transitory forecast turned out to be so wrong. It is unlikely to last. We have 6 months of good inflation readings, but you can, and you know this, you can look behind those numbers, and you can see that a lot of it's been coming from goods inflation. For example, goods inflation running significantly negative, Powell said. This is all what Powell said. It is a reasonable assumption that over time goods inflations will flatten out and probably approximate zero. This would mean the service sectors would have to contribute more. But what we saw is not only did goods inflation not flatten out, it partially reversed with the index. Let me see. Durable good prices actually rose for the first time since May, climbing 0.2%. This is two implications. First, if the non-durable goods deflation had not continued in January, overall inflation would have been even higher. That matters because non-durable goods deflation is not likely to continue. It is likely to become a source of positive inflation if energy prices climb as a result of global geopolitical tensions or due to a recovery in demand when European and Asian economies get back on their feet. So it's just interesting. And I've even Axios even talked about the inflation problems. And, yes, they did ask the question, why it matters.
Why it matters. Interesting. I hit the Wendy's drive-thru yesterday, and while it wasn't surge pricing, prices were going up while I was sitting there because of inflation going up so fast. Just a joke. They weren't. I got to be honest with you, I don't remember looking at the prices. I was very hungry and wanted one of those great burgers. But they were, the story got out that Wendy's was going to be doing surge pricing with their new digital menus. Well, how long before all the fast food, the drive-through companies are going to have to put in digital menus because they're going to have to adjust prices on the fly because inflation keeps going up. I mean, this is the problem that the administration has, where the Fed's not getting on top of inflation. I believed from the beginning that Jerome Powell, the Fed, is not serious about inflation, and we're seeing that play out. So now you've raised interest rates. Inflation is still happening, and we're not seeing many people certainly not seeing a relief in the things that we buy, the normal things, that the things we typically buy at the store, the products we consume. And it's so problematic right now. Again, I would love to see the gauge on how people are dealing with this. What the adjustments you make? I mean, first of all, you cut back on what you're buying, right? You cut back on, and maybe you go to the store brand versus the name brand item. You go, you do all of these things. You cut back on your driving. We saw that young people were, that survey that more and more young people wanted to stay home on the weekend. They weren't going out. And one of the common threads was, because every time I go out with my friends on the weekend, it costs me $100.
This was because when you talk about personal income, by the numbers, overall personal income rose 1% in January. At first glance, a huge gain, right?
Yeah.
But it was driven by Social Security cost of living adjustments and higher dividends on stock portfolios. But tear it apart, and Americans' income picture was gloomier. Disposable income after taxes rose a more modest 0.3%. Once you account for inflation, income did not rise at all, as compared to 0.2% gain in December. It was a large nominal income surge entirely offset by taxes and inflation, Chief Economist Gregory Dacko put in a note. Sluggish real income growth could dampen future consumer prices and keep Americans' optimism low. And when you're talking about Social Security, remember, Social Security, when the cost of living increase, which was a huge bump in it, that, for example, you could look at and say that's borrowed money.
Yeah.
So that's income's gone up, but that's borrowed money that we're paying interest on the national debt.
Right.
So what is the overall impact on the economy on that? And higher dividends on stock portfolios, well, are you cashing in that stock?
Right.
Or are you letting it sit there? What is the actual effect? And what effect will that have on consumer spending if you're not liquidating, whatever you have in investments because it's going up? Because you don't see it. If you have a 401k, you don't see it.
Right.
That's, again, on paper. And we know that the Democrats wish to tax all of that, but the fact is it may be used as income or wealth, but the fact is you've got to dig deeper, I think, into those stock portfolio numbers to find out, okay, who's actually cashing out,
right?
And that particular income and what percentage of the population is it? So,
right, yeah.
Still, this is something that you and I had said. You said it a long time ago. You said the Fed isn't the Fed isn't serious.
No.
Well, you can make a case, as you had John Carney do, that the administration isn't serious.
No, I don't think the administration is serious at all.
To bring up John Carney again, he said on Fox Business Network's Kudlow that Biden administration is undermining the Federal Reserve's attempts to bring down inflation. He was asked, you have to admit, it was very tough to get inflation down if you have $2 trillion deficit, and that's where we're going. It is a $1.6 trillion now on the annual basis, and it's probably going up to $2 trillion. They're still spending without any pay-fors. Carney responded, that's right. The Biden administration has been undermining the Fed's attempt to bring down inflation by running very reckless fiscal policy. We're running the kind of fiscal deficits you see in a crisis when you have unemployment at 8 to 10 to 12%, not when you have unemployment at 3.7%.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason to be doing it now, yet they're doing it. It makes the Fed job much harder. I think one reason inflation keeps going up, or at least got stuck where it is, not going down. All these dreams people have of the Fed cutting this year, cutting 4 times, that is not going to happen.
Look, I can see it being right out of the playbook from the left, that the administration basically working with the Fed chair saying, all right, you guys raise the interest rates just enough to slow the impact on the spending we're going to continue doing. So some kind of bizarre and very dangerous balancing act, or at least tempering act, because the former Fed chair, Janet Yellen, who's now the Treasury Secretary, I could see her sitting right there with the Biden administration saying, oh, yeah, we could definitely slow the impact of the inflation and still be able to spend. I can see that being the actual agenda all day. Hey, Powell, you raise it a little bit, keep raising it a little bit. We're going to continue the spending thing, so it won't be a massive impact like the, well over 9% that we saw at one point. It'll just be chugging along, and people will get used to it. And by the way, we had the poll, what was that, last week, that people are settling in, that inflation is here to stay. It's not transitory, or as our buddy in Houston called it, permatory. It's actually permatory.
Well, now he's, I think he's elevated it to suppository.
Yeah.
Suppository inflation is what we're dealing with right now. That was one of the best lines ever. And I told him, I let him know.
Yeah.
I let him know. I messaged him and said, we use it on the air.
Yeah.
He was, all right.
Right.
He was very happy.
Yeah.
So transitory. Then I got mind blank here. It was Richard.
Yeah, Richard.
Our great friend Richard Rosso in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
Great financial guy. Because, and he did it when they said transitory. He goes, transitory, this is permatory.
Yeah.
And then it was a couple weeks ago where he said it's gone from permatory to suppository. And it was like, oh. And he actually had an official thing that he was writing, official financial thing, which was humorous to begin with.
I would throw in also purgatory, because it's putting a lot of American families through hell. This is something where when you don't have that spending power, that is so disconcerting as parents, where, because every day, I've learned now that my kids are fully grown, kids have to eat every day. They require food every day. I didn't know that then. I know that now. And you're going to have, and it's my nephew they have 3 boys, and they're all playing sports. My 3 great nephews. Well, man, when they get to that age, 8, 9, 10, and then they're all playing, boys or girls. By the way, my granddaughters went through the same thing. When they were, when they were at school and they started playing sports, well, they get a lot hungrier. Man, you're just going through the food. You're burning through the food left and right. It's always been difficult for families and parents. It's always been a challenge. But right now, this challenge, this greatest challenge, this depletion of their buying power and the ability to put food on the table, keep a roof over the head, is a direct result of policy by this administration.
We'll have to get to the study that shows, came out yesterday, for the first time, the experts believe that obesity is a bigger problem than hunger worldwide. But you can't tackle obesity.
No, it's fat shaming.
And because you're fat shaming.
I mean, Weight Watchers, a company that built itself on helping people get healthy, all of a sudden is accused a few years ago of fat shaming.
You know, when John Carney brought this up about the national debt and how that's going to affect it, it's something that you and I said. We've been saying this consistently since inflation happened. You've got to stop government spending. And we said, here's the scenario. And we were right. And nobody was talking about this at the time. You could watch CNBC all day and nobody would bring it up.
Oh, yeah.
We said when the Fed puts out these positive forecasts, what they're not talking about, what they don't project out, is where the federal deficit is going with the rising interest rates.
Yeah.
And you get to the interest rates of over 5% that people are paying for Treasury bills and bonds and whatever. And a couple of years ago, it was 0.00001%. And then you're running $2 trillion deficits. And then the actual interest on the debt is over $1 trillion. You're getting into this cycle where you're not going to be able to get inflation under control. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now. And nobody considers us, neither of us have financial degrees, but you don't need one to figure this crap out.
No, it's right there for everyone to see, and it's pretty simple process, and it's playing out right in front of us every day.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Just because idling is common doesn't make it smart. Idling a diesel uses about a gallon of fuel per hour, which can cost you about $180 per week at $4.50 per gallon if your truck idles 8 hours a day. Idling easily can cost you a few thousand more in fuel alone per year, not including the added engine maintenance expense that results from excessive idling. Harder on your truck's engine than highway driving. In addition to operating costs, many governments impose no idling laws and regulations with fines as high as $25,000. Instead, there are many alternatives. An extra blanket for cold temperatures, window screens for when the weather is warm, bunk heaters, and various auxiliary power unit options abound in this day and age too, many powered just by batteries. Otherwise, diesel and gas gensets burn far less fuel than your truck's engine. Research options to find your fit. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics.
Brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Hurley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up on the bottom of the hour. Wow. The Bloomberg swing state polls coming out yesterday. You look at it, you're like, whoa, wow. And again, we don't look at one poll and say that is the be-all, end-all. We've never done that. We look for patterns, and the pattern seems to be the same over the last month or so, that Biden is losing support, no matter what poll you look at. And, even when earlier this week, we looked at the three different polls, state polls, North Carolina, Nevada, and Arizona,
right,
where Newsom polled the worst. And when we saw the first poll, we went, that's interesting. Then we saw the second poll and went, okay. Then the third poll, we're like, okay, there seems to be some kind of pattern here because these were taken at different times.
Right.
But it was interesting because these are state polls and they're swing states.
Yeah.
And Newsom's doing horrible, which is when we went, oh, that's why nobody's bringing up his name anymore, because in their own internal polls, they're seeing how Newsom is polling.
Yeah,
but
it's interesting, though, with these polls, because I think inside the ranks of the Democratic Party, you look at it and say, look, 8 years of Obama brings Donald Trump. What would 8 years of Joe Biden bring? The point being is if it's naturally happening that Biden's mess is creating strength for Donald Trump, and we're not going to do 25th Amendment. We're not going to, he's not going to step down. Biden's not going to step down. If he naturally wins, let Trump get in there, 28, we come back at it. I mean, I've been saying that for a while as a theory. It's still just a theory. But honestly, you have to ask the bigger question. My gosh, what long-term damage to the party could Biden do if Biden had a full 8 years? And that's something, if you're a Democrat, you have to ask yourself and be concerned with.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. So here we are, March 1st.
Wow. Crazy. Crazy.
All right.
Yeah.
So we're just a little over 8 months till the election.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it just seems like things are moving so fast. We didn't have much of a winter. I saw some video from the Sierra Nevadas, and I thought, ooh, man, they've got some snow going on there. But we just kind of catapulted into spring. We had some cooler weather come through over the last couple of days, but we're well into spring, even a month before it officially began. But the year in the election, when you think about it, November 5th, it's going to go by so quickly because so much is going on. By the way, I want to take issue with Professor Margot Cleveland. I woke up to get some water after sleeping about 3 hours. I woke up to get some water, came back, checked my phone. I know that's on me, but she posted a thread about the whole Hunter Biden transcript thing. And to Professor Cleveland, listen, you can't do that to me because I never went back to sleep. It was like went through, oh, yeah, that's a great point. And, then here we are. So she's the reason I didn't get a lot of sleep. I'm just going to stick with that. But you think of all the things that are going on. There are so many massive elements right now in this election, and none of them are in the abstract.
No, and I think that's the difference. And here on March 1st, a little over 8 months till the election, I saw some analysis the other day saying that, look, the problem for both Biden and Trump is neither is attempting to go to the middle at all.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody. They're both trying to shore up the base. They don't need to shore up the base. I believe Biden does. I don't know what Biden's base is, by the way. I don't. I know what Trump's base is. But if I'm a political analyst for the Republican Party and they say what should he do, when you're talking, because he was blistering at Biden yesterday on the border, and you would listen to that normally on another issue and say, all right, he needs to tone it down a little bit because he's got to appeal to the independent. And my first thought was, no, he didn't, because people are furious. It's the number one issue for people right now.
Right.
That's the number one, and they're livid. Yeah. And so he reflects what the majority of independents are thinking. And so you start looking at the major issues out there that we brought you over the last couple of days, and the fact that Trump has landslide numbers over those particular issues. The abortion, he's talking about 15 weeks, whatever.
Right.
But abortion isn't in the top concerns of anybody out there.
Right.
And I still don't think it might help him, with suburban women. I don't know whether it will or not if he talks about, the 15, 16. He said, well, I haven't come up with it, but 15, 16 weeks or, things that we're looking at, which is really interesting because what you're doing then is you're trying to say, are you trying to find when life actually begins or what is politically tolerable?
Yeah, right.
But as we've said overall, where life begins is the debate now. And very few Americans believe that life begins at birth. The majority of Americans, including the majority of a huge plurality of women, believe that it begins sometime in the womb. But the fact is that's still not the number one issue out there. As we have talked about, the number one issues all have to do with government, inflation, the economy, immigration.
Right.
Those things are so bad right now. There is no middle that Trump has to go to on those issues. And if you look at the polling, and Trump has been normal Trump, which there's good and there's good, and then at times you go, it's not, this is getting to election time. Normally you need to go to the middle, but has the middle come to the right, or has the middle come to the strongest issues that Donald Trump believes in, so he doesn't need to go to the middle because the middle's actually come to him?
That's a great point, yeah.
And when you look at all the different state polls that have come out really over the last month, and you've seen it, how many of the number of polls said, my God, Trump's winning in every swing state? It's not just one poll saying that. Then I saw the Bloomberg swing polls yesterday. Trump, Arizona, Trump 49, Biden 43. Wisconsin, Trump 46, Biden 42. Georgia, Trump 49, Biden 43. North Carolina, Trump 50, Biden 41. Pennsylvania, Trump 49, Biden 43.
Okay. I brought up Pennsylvania, a few nights ago?
Yep.
Because of Fetterman, but also because of 2016. You and I were saying in a couple of months out in 2016, we said, look, watch Pennsylvania, because I knew some people there, and things weren't adding up. The polls I didn't think were reflecting what was going on. It was just a gut feeling, and it turned out to be correct in that case. We weren't making a prediction, but it's just something didn't seem right. But Fetterman now, with being, pro-Israel, being pro-strong on the border, which is going against the grain of his party, that's a clear indication. And he may personally believe that. I can't get inside the guy's head. But certainly his constituents in Pennsylvania believe that. And that's where, he's feeling that, at the very least, he feels that political pressure. He doesn't feel pressured to go along with a pro-Hamas and open border crowd, that's for sure. So it tells you that, okay, then what are you seeing? Well, you look at the states where Trump won in 2016. We talked about Michigan the other night. Now you can bring in Pennsylvania. You look at these certain states, and again, these are just polls, and it's just March 1st, except for the fact that these items aren't items that will go away. What's different than 2016 is this is not about what Trump would do if he ever became president. He's already been president, and Biden has been president, and that's a very unique situation in American history. You basically have two incumbents, so you can tell, based on their job performance during their time, what each of them has done. They have a track record as president, and that's very different.
The issues are no longer. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
but the issues are no longer abstract.
Yep.
Neither are the candidates.
Exactly.
You know what they did when. You knew what Trump did when he was office. You knew what Biden did when he was. There's no guessing game here.
There's no guessing game. They each have a track record.
So if you take it based on the top four issues that are all domestic,
right?
If anybody's out there thinking that Ukraine is driving the election, well, what's driving Ukraine is the debate of tying what's going on at the border to what's going on at the border of Ukraine. I mean, and so. When we played earlier Senator Chris Murphy, the Democrat, stating that they're calling it an invasion, xenophobic, racism, an invasion of what's going on in Ukraine. I'm sitting there with my political consultant hat on,
right,
saying that's really a poor argument.
Yeah.
That's not going to convince independents to, well, something that's true.
Yeah.
To call it an invasion, that's going to decide my vote here because we shouldn't be calling it an invasion of the southern border because the true invasion is Ukraine. I'm like,
that's not affecting your daily life.
In fact, I said to myself, who is he talking to?
Right.
I don't know who he's talking. I don't even know what Democrat he's talking to make that an effective point.
Right.
But when I saw the one that stood out here is Pennsylvania, Trump 49, Biden 43, where Trump is almost at 50. That's if these are true, that's mind-boggling. It's not really mind-boggling because it's not abstract anymore. People are we're in an election where everything is about the real world. Then you have Nevada, Trump 48, Biden 42, Michigan, Trump 46, Biden 44. And they had the five-way here. Okay, these are all five-way, okay? Here we go. Mm-hmm. Arizona. If you have Kennedy, West, and Stein in there, Trump up by 9. Georgia. If you have, the five-way, Trump up by 7 in Georgia. Michigan, Trump up by 1 in Georgia with the 5 in there. Nevada.
You said Michigan, then Georgia. So in Michigan up by 1?
By 1, yes.
Okay.
Nevada, you have Trump up by 7. In North Carolina, if you have all 5, Trump up by 10. Pennsylvania, which was +6 if it's just Trump against Biden. If you have all 5 in, Trump gains 3 points. He's up +9 in Pennsylvania. And Wisconsin, if you have all 5, Trump up by 6. Those numbers are, what it shows is what we thought to begin with. You don't hear a lot of Republicans now going, I got to give that Kennedy a second chance anymore. You really don't hear that. Got to pay attention to what Kennedy's saying. You know why? Because being anti-vax isn't an issue right now that Americans are concerned about.
Nope. That boat is already gone. It's already, not only has it sailed, it's already at its port. It's already done. The trip is already over. When we saw the poll that came out and showed that if Trump were convicted on the January 6th thing, it would help him by a couple of points. Again, it's just one poll, but it is indicative because it should have been a huge swing in the other direction. And yes, the methodologies vary. The states will have their issues between now and then. The down ballot means something. A turnout, of course, is everything. And it's hard to gauge, but the thing, or predict. But the thing is that we look at the movement in the polls. We're not the only ones recognizing this movement, by the way, in the polls. The Democrats are recognizing it. You can see how scared they are right now, how desperate they are. They're throwing everything. Everything. Another judge in Illinois is off the ballot. I mean, we'll let it go through the courts and see what happens. But, and they're just throwing everything at the wall to see what will stick on Trump. Of course, all the cases against him. This is something where they clearly, the radicals don't want him to be president. I think a number of radicals don't want him to be president because, again, when he gets back into office, he's going to have, he's going to be privy to a lot of information that could hurt the Democratic Party for a long, long time. We'll see if that actually plays out. He has said recently, former President Trump, that his revenge will be fixing everything that's broken.
Right.
So
reversing the policies of the Biden administration will be his revenge.
Yeah, right. but many on the far left, of course, they all hate him, but they also fear Donald Trump.
Well, you can see the panic. By the way, it was Jack Smith asked for the Supreme Court to review the immunity.
Oh, yeah.
And the left, I'm reading here the headline. I read the article earlier, but just the headline, David Harzani in the Federalist.com. Democrats furious that due process is ruining their lawfare. And it's been pointed out, Wall Street Journal pointed out, Jack Smith asked for this. And they're going crazy because it's not, the Supreme Court isn't on their time schedule. So they're saying that the Supreme Court now is basically insurrection, is supporting insurrection.
Right.
Because they're not doing it at their particular time schedule, that it's not going to be solved till April. And if the Supreme Court doesn't make a decision so this can be done before the election, that the Supreme Court is part of the insurrection. This is how insane they are.
The special prosecutor asked for it.
Yeah. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. The reason I brought up Pennsylvania is because looking at the Real Clear polling, you go back to the beginning of the year. Now, remember, all these are registered voters. How it would appear in likely voters, which you'll see those polls coming up later on this year. But I'm looking at the polls here from beginning of January till now. Biden +3, Biden +8, Biden +1. We get into February, Trump +2, Trump +6. And so you start looking at, okay, and the pretty big samples, all registered voters, though. But the last Bloomberg one was done actually a pretty long, from 12/2 to 12/20. So that was an 8-day poll.
Wow.
That they took that over.
Wow.
And that's the one where Trump was +6.
Yeah.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. Hi, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
If you look at the polling, and we went through a number of the polls. This goes back, I think, earlier this week. And we were looking at the fact and went, oh, wow. Trump in the polling is outperforming some of the Senate candidates. And one of the places we mentioned was Arizona. He's outperforming Kari Lake.
Yeah.
Gallego is up, I think +9 in one poll, taken in the last week, and +3 in another. And Trump, depending on whether it's 5 or head-to-head. Well, head-to-head, I believe, what was it here? I think he's up by 6 head-to-head.
Wow.
That's a 9-point difference. That really didn't happen in 2020.
It's interesting. You and I have had this discussion about, because typically Trump performs, if he performs well, then the down ballot effect is there, and others in those states other Republicans are going to benefit from that. But what if he's outperforming? In 2016, in many of the races, in the districts and state races, the districts and Senate races, the House and Senate races, the candidates on the right outperformed him. But could we be looking at a situation where he outperforms Republicans? And that, look, I still believe, and I think you're with me, I think we covered this the other day, that when it comes down to it, it won't be about what the polls are reflecting here. The down ballot effect will still be there.
Yes, I believe it will be. But in the case of Arizona, if I'm if I'm the RNC and the new head of the RNC wants to have Republican candidates win, I just go back to the Babylon Bee on Ronna McDaniel. She's been hired by the DNC because she's been so good at defeating Republicans.
Yeah.
But if I was Trump, I'd be parked in Arizona, because if your polls are actually showing that you're 6 up in Arizona, you want to make that a lock. And the other thing I'd be doing is I'd be campaigning for Carrie Lake constantly.
Yeah, sure.
I'd be out there, with it and say, okay, we need this Senate seat, and
that may be a plan,
right? I'm sure it is.
Yeah, I don't know how you wouldn't do that.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know if any rift between the two, especially those two. So that I think probably will happen.
You made a great point because we were trying to analyze, and it's tough. We admit it when it comes to state races.
Mm-hmm.
If you ask us about Texas, we live here.
Right.
So we can tell you, well, look, these are the commercials that are running. This is a thing that somebody has said that really has affected. You get more of an idea of what people are thinking. In Arizona, I know that the border's a huge issue, which is why Trump is up there. Why Carrie Lake in the polls is not performing could be number one. It's just a couple of polls.
Right. Yeah.
All right.
Right.
Number two, I don't know what the issues are inside of there, but you brought up a great point. You said Carrie Lake. Now, again, I'm not watching the media in Arizona,
right?
But we know that Carrie Lake has moved back on the fact that the election was stolen in 2020.
Right. Yeah, she's kind of backed away from that. And I don't know, did the Trump loyalists look at that and say, hey, you've abandoned him and we're not, and because of that, we're, you're losing our support. It's hard to know.
Now, she has talked about, I have seen her, quite passionately talk about Maricopa County and what,
sure.
And the fact is we need to make sure that elections are legit.
Yep. And she's right on
above
all those
board.
ones.
She is completely.
Yep. And by the way, she's also great with the media, things that we've talked about with, and probably in part because of her experience with the media, but also, of course, her conviction, in terms of, and we've talked about this with a number of people in the GOP, including, and at the top of the list, Governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis. She doesn't back down from the Byron Donalds as well.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't back down from the media. That's something that's going to be needed within the party. The fighters, as we're seeing the sunset of Mitch McConnell era, we need to be ushering in true fighters that are not going to back down. Certainly not back down from the media. And hopefully that's what happens with the GOP. We'll see.
Yeah, and again, we're talking about a very few polls, but again, you see over the last month where the momentum is moving.
Right.
And the momentum is moving all in Trump's way, even though Trump in the polling going back to November has always had the lead in Arizona.
Yeah. Yep.
He's always had that lead. But to see when you break it down that he's up, was it by 9?
Mm-hmm.
Was it in Arizona? If you break it down to the 5, that's let me just see it very quickly go there. Up by 9. He's up by 9. It'd be Trump 45, Biden 36, Kennedy 9, West 1, Stein 1. And we had said, the one thing you can see here is almost in every state except, and it's only +1 difference in Michigan. So that could be an error or whatever. But in every single battleground state, Kennedy pulls more from Biden than he does Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And we always believed that was the case. Early on, whether he was talking about Ukraine, whether he was talking about, vaccinations, whatever, you had some on the right saying, well, we got to give this guy a listen to. As you get closer to an election, people do start thinking, what's going to get me the win? And I also agree with you when you said, let's say, and again, we're just talking momentum, direction.
Right.
But if Carrie Lake is down, but Trump wins by 10 points, I can almost guarantee you Carrie Lake wins.
Yeah, I really think the down ballot
carry
effect, it will. I really believe it will be that, because I think there could be a number of things. It could be that the Trump loyalists are sending her a message. It could be that they just don't like her as a candidate for whatever reason. But it also could be, that I do believe there is a greater possibility, maybe even probability, that if he wins, he's going to carry her on the down ballot. But, it gets down to also who the opponent is and if her messaging was on point and how it was connecting. And in a purple state like that, it's really so hard to predict. But I do believe she will likely outperform the polls. At least she'll outperform these polls if Trump wins. I do believe there's a greater chance of that happening. Whether she will win or not, we'll see.
And we're 8 months out.
Exactly.
The other thing is I found it, this is something, if you've been a long-time listener to the show, we've said this for years, and we really haven't seen many others talk about it. We've always said Trump is a moderate.
Mm-hmm.
On the issues, Trump is a moderate.
Yeah.
He's not a radical in any way. The positions that he holds are positions that mainstream Democrats and Republicans have held for the last 40 years in this country.
Yeah. Yeah.
On the border, he simply, think about this, on the border, Trump simply said, enforce the damn law that already exists from Congress. That is anything but a fascist.
Right. Right.
And I found, because I had mentioned yesterday, I saw that Ben Shapiro had commented on it, and he said, the dirty little secret about 2024, on policy, Joe Biden is the extremist. Donald Trump is the moderate. He is closer to the median voter on virtually every single issue than Biden is. And we've been saying that for years.
And Democrats have been pointing at Joe Biden as the moderate forever, still are to some extent. And on the issues, Ben's right. It's very clear. Remember on the Iran thing, on the Iran deal, Trump came into office and said, well, no, that should be for Congress to work out. It shouldn't have been for the executive branch and Obama to do the Iran deal. That should be Congress. Let them come up with an Iran deal. And then the polls were done. Do you believe it should be up to Congress, not the executive branch? Yes. And then, do you believe Trump should reverse the deal in order for Congress to be able to do? No! You introduce his name, and people lose their minds.
Well, they did. Yeah. Are they now?
Right. That's the question.
That's the question.
Wow, here's a big question. How prevalent is Trump derangement syndrome right now compared to where it was? There's no doubt it still exists. We see it. We talk about it. We demonstrate it every single night with people on the left. But the question is, for the average American voter, do they look at that and say, he's not that extreme? I don't know how much Michael Rappaport has influence on anyone, He might say the same thing. Hey, I'm just a guy. But he's an indication of people going, wait a minute. And he went back recently and said, I went back to the whole Charlottesville thing, and I was part of spreading the lie.
Yeah.
But when I went back and did my fact-checking on it, I was wrong.
When I read the transcript and actually listened to the speech, it wasn't what happened. I don't think it's whether somebody like Michael Rappaport or any celebrity, what they believe influencing others. I think the second point you made is the more correct point, is that it's an indication
that
of how people are thinking and evolving. And I think that when you look at not just Rappaport, when you look at a Barry Weiss or a Michael Schellenberger or a Matt Taibbi and how they have moved. And Barry Weiss, for example, when she worked for the New York Times, she's just known as the ultimate liberal. And for her to come out when she said it, Donald Trump was right. I can't vote for Biden. And the fact that she could vote for Trump.
That's unreal.
And you sit there and go, well, will that influence doesn't matter whether it influences.
It's about whether the mindset is changing. We've talked about this on the left.
She represents a number of people out there that had that mindset that are now questioning the Democratic Party.
Exactly. We've talked about a number of things saying, well, look, a conspiracy on the left, that's not the most dangerous part. It's everyone having the same mindset, right? Where your mind is working like everybody else and you just think that way, so you behave that way. Well, here's the thing. The influence from Barry Weiss, the influence from Rappaport, not the point. Is it an indication that hearts and minds are changing? Because, again, it used to take a lot more to change those hearts and minds, and now reality, nothing changes hearts and minds like reality at your doorstep.
Let's go to Bradley in Tucson, Arizona. Bradley, welcome. You're on Red Eye Radio. Thanks for calling.
Of course. Good morning.
Good morning.
As you said, I am Bradley. I'm calling in from Tucson, Arizona, a border state, a swing state, and a lot of eyes are turning to Arizona. And I'm calling in because I wanted to talk a little bit about the border. You guys talked about the border earlier in the show and then about some of the Arizona polling. And the border is a real issue that Arizonans are facing. We see the crisis that it's bringing not only on our state but on our country. And as you guys are in Texas, I'm sure you understand the same thing. But Arizonans are really... We look for solutions, not parties, not political wins, not gains. And we're not seeing solutions right now in Washington. In the Senate last month, we had a great team of bipartisan senators, Republicans, independents, Democrats. They came together and they passed a border deal, and we were thankful. And then you look on the other side of the Capitol at the House, and Speaker Mike Johnson refused to put up the bill. They refused to pass aid for our southern border, for Israel, for our other allies that we are, really focused on protecting right now. But that's hurting our border communities. And
no, it's not.
I just don't think that Arizona voters will.
All right, Bradley, we're limited on time. Yeah, we're limited on time. But again, nice propaganda. The reason that Republicans in the House wouldn't go for it, and they were rightly so, is there was no enforcement mechanism for Joe Biden. Joe Biden has not paid attention to federal law now. How would he pay attention to federal law later? So you saying that you're for solutions was a bunch of BS that you just told us there.
Right.
You're not for solutions.
You were clearly for agenda.
Right. You're for agenda, not solutions.
Right.
Because this would have not solved the problem at the border because there was no enforcement mechanism to make Biden abide by it.
And the talking points don't work when they're coming from Chuck Schumer, and they don't work when they're coming from you.
Yeah. So thanks for the call, though. 866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I just love the last caller. I love when people call and say, I represent basically the people of Arizona.
Yeah, I'm nonpartisan. That's the implication,
right? And I'm nonpartisan, and we're about getting the job done.
Yeah.
And then you realize he's actually reading the talking points of the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
And so we're going to call you out on that. That's why, because that's what you were doing. As we went through point by point by point. And we're not going to go through it again. I'm not going to go through the minutia of it as we already did. But the so-called, quote, bipartisan border bill actually weakened what current federal law is on the border.
Yeah.
And so that was an automatic no.
Yep.
It weakens it. And since the president of the United States is not enforcing border law now for any Republican, because, see, we don't care about party. We actually don't care about party.
Right.
We care about the specifics of the issues. So I don't care if something is bipartisan. We have a $34+ trillion debt because of bipartisanship. Bipartisanship can suck.
Well,
and so when you have a border bill that weakens what current federal law is and has no enforcement mechanism to force the president to enforce a weaker law, we say no.
Well, that's it. I mean, when you look at the over in the Senate, that idea of putting together something that was going to create a permanent hole in the border, and by allowing a great number of people across the border, and the current law is quite sufficient if you just follow the law. And what they did in the House is very clear. If there is no enforcement mechanism and nothing to put the administration's feet to the fire when it comes to enforcing the law, the new law created, then there's no way we're going to pass this law. It gives them way too much discretion. We're not going to pretend to do something. And that's the problem with the caller. The caller's pretending, as many of the seminar callers do. And reading from literally reading from the leftist playbook is also something we recognize because we've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, the proposal would undermine the existing presumptions in the law that illegal aliens should be apprehended, detained, and rapidly removed, as current law states. It was Andrew McCarthy really who pointed out from National Review saying, here are the specifics of the law. As he said, he goes, the bipartisan Senate proposal, he goes, and there's some good in it. He goes, but it can already be accomplished under current law and would require faith that the Biden administration will, for some reason, enforce these provisions, even though it has systemically refused to enforce existing border security provisions. That's not a talking point.
Nope.
That's reality, and that's what we're dealing with.
Yep.
And I just love it when Democrats do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're not about politics. Now, let me read the talking points.
Now, let me read the
from
exact
the party.
talking points from the party. Yeah.
The most influential radio show in the world. On now, at this moment, Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I didn't find any AI questions for the show today. Maybe I can do some research and find some.
Dang it. Hey, let's go ask AI what really embarrassing AI questions have been, or results have been divulged lately. Okay. Would that make, if AI answered that accurately, would that mean that it's become self-aware?
Wait a minute. Yeah. Shouldn't AI be able to fix this
Well,
on
that's
its own?
I mean, can we,
Right.
is it too soon to go back and ask questions about the questions that have been, and the results of those questions, answers to those questions in recent days? Or are you going to be crossing streams like the Ghostbusters? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. What do I know?
So, in an example of the right hand not knowing what the left hand is doing yesterday, as Biden had that horrible, it was a horrible day for the administration yesterday on the border. The White House is calling for sanctuary cities and jurisdictions across the United States to cooperate with immigration and customs enforcement in turning over criminal illegal immigrants for deportation. Just as there is renewed scrutiny over such policies in the wake of several high-profile crimes committed by illegal immigrants who had previously been released by local law enforcement despite pleas from ICE. We welcome local law enforcement support and cooperation in apprehending and removing individuals who pose a risk to national security or public safety, a White House spokesperson told Fox News Digital on Wednesday in response to a question about its stance on sanctuary cities when a local jurisdiction has information about an individual who could pose a threat to public safety. We want them to share that information with ICE. Sanctuary cities either limit or outright forbid law enforcement from honoring ICE detainers, which are requests from the agency that ICE be notified ahead of their release from state custody and allowed to transfer illegal immigrant criminals into custody. This week, it was revealed by ICE that the alleged killer of the Georgia nursing student, Laken Riley, was previously arrested in New York, but was then released before ICE could even issue a detainer. Separately, there have been other alleged crimes committed by illegal immigrants, including an arrest in connection to a murder of a 2-year-old in Maryland who had detainers lodged against them but were not honored by authorities. Well, I think the president should come out tomorrow and say all sanctuary cities should end. Yeah. Not just a spokesperson.
Right.
In a written response, the president should come out and say sanctuary cities should end.
Yep.
Will he do that?
Nope.
This is where the right hand doesn't know where the left hand is doing. I wonder if they'll come out and redo that tomorrow. But someone go, well, why did he say that? Who said that? No. We can't tell these cities what to do. Wow.
I'm the president of the United States, Jack. I don't tell the cities what to do, Jack. Wow. There is really nowhere for them to go.
Well, by the way, the best line yesterday was the Border Patrol warning President Biden to keep our name out of your mouth. That's a quote in a statement ahead of the visit.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Well, you know, that's the thing, is that obviously he was going to use them as a prop in the background. You know, that they're there standing behind him, both literally and figuratively. They stand behind this administration. We all know that's not the case. That is not the case. He makes their job impossible. He completely undermined, and I do mean 100% undermined, the mission statement of the Border Patrol, and has from the beginning. Actually, before the beginning, he did it as a candidate. He promised to do it. And he's doing it as president. So their entire mission statement, the job at hand, out the window. It's not Border Patrol, it's border processing. And, yeah, I can see those agents and the union that represents them. Don't use us as the prop. Don't bring us into this. We're not part of the mess you created.
Oh, yeah, and because they knew it was going to happen.
Oh,
they knew that, as we saw all those Border Patrol agents standing behind Biden and the looks on their faces.
Yep.
Were like, we were ordered to do this.
Yep.
Wow. Reading here, Joe Concha. Trump and Biden visits to border beg one question voters should be asking. He writes for thehill.com. This one was in Fox, though. He said the president's visit comes almost 2 weeks after Biden finally decided to visit East Palestine, Ohio. So in an effort to go on the offensive, Biden attempted to blame Trump for the current crisis during scripted remarks in Brownsville on Thursday afternoon. Here's what I would say to Mr. Trump. Instead of playing politics with the issue, instead of telling members of Congress to block the bill, join me or I'll join you in telling Congress to pass this bipartisan security bill.
Yeah.
Well, that's a few weeks old, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the so-called bipartisan bill that was ultimately killed in the Senate was as limp as your average dish rag. It contained nothing regarding resumption of building a border wall. Biden signed an executive order on his first day in office, halting the construction. The bill did not reinstate Trump's successful Remain in Mexico policy, something else Biden eliminated via executive order. And it didn't end the practice of catch and release. Without those cornerstones, nothing truly of note will change at the border. One question voters should be asking, among others, is this. As mentioned, Biden visited Brownsville, which has currently seen almost no illegal crossings. Just 6 people crossed into the country illegally on Wednesday there, for example, according to border officials. While Trump went to Eagle Pass, where there were more than 2,000 apprehensions since February 24th alone, per CBB, the crisis is so bad that the first responders in Eagle Pass have applied for a grant to pay for mental health services due to all of those who have died trying to cross the Rio Grande River, including children. Perhaps another reason why Biden suddenly got the urge to visit the border, besides not allowing Trump to continue to own the narrative on the issue, is because of the murder of University of Georgia nursing student Laken Riley. The 22-year-old was murdered by a Venezuelan man who entered the country illegally 2 years ago during a time the Biden administration kept insisting that the border was secure. Police say the cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head, and then goes on to talk about the suspect and how he was able to stay in the country. So, yeah, when you look at this, it's like horrible day for Biden. Then the White House tells Fox News Digital sanctuary cities should cooperate with ICE. Well, then they're no longer sanctuary cities. Why are you having a representative say that? Why didn't the president say that yesterday?
Well,
why didn't if you really mean it, the public doesn't buy into any of the crap that the White House is throwing out. Nothing. No. Since they lie constantly, well, then people perceive everything as a lie.
You know, we've been tearing apart why the strategy would be, look, he can't be outdone by Trump. That's, by the way, I'm sure, I believe it's Biden making that decision. The Trump's going to the border. I need to go to the border. Because think about this. What would you typically do if Trump goes to the border? You bring up something, you have a press conference, you do something, you announce something that distracts from Trump being at the border. That's not related to the border. I don't know. Something else on student loans. I don't know. Whatever. Shrinkflation. You come out with your own announcement instead of trying to mimic what Trump is doing on something you're losing on. In fact, Trump is benefiting from because of your policy. That's a loser all day, and how someone didn't step in front of it is beyond me. Yesterday was horrible. Horrible for this president. Because the reality is horrible because he caused it, and there's no way to fix it. Why wouldn't you just ignore it?
I still think the most amazing thing yesterday is when you see that both CBS and NBC, and maybe ABC did it too, I don't know, but I only had the audio cuts from ABC and NBC acknowledging that this is happening because of what Biden did when he got into office.
Yeah.
That they actually ran 2 stories on that is just, that would not have happened a year ago.
No.
They would not have run it.
Nope. No. And, it spells out that reality. The internals are showing the damage he's done. They're seeing that. The White House is seeing it. His campaign is seeing it. But to think that you're going to put the fire out or gain favor in any way by running toward the flames that you ignited? No, this is when the left runs away and does something else, a distraction.
It's going to be.
You make some kind of announcement on whatever, but the last thing you do is show up at the border.
And then start talking about climate change.
Oh, my gosh.
It's like, what in the hell?
I mean, the lack of self-awareness.
I know.
Unreal.
And we have 8 more months of this.
This is, I mean, he needs to be taking more long weekends at home, away from cameras.
Yeah, they might want to get back to the policy of not having Biden out there at all. But see, it's different when you're president of the United States.
You can't hide.
Yeah.
And when there's nothing you can do. You created the problem, and then you're pretending like you want to do something to fix it, which, of course, everyone knows you don't. Ouch. Your own reality coming back like a really, really heavy boomerang over and over again.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up on the top of the hour, wow, the Lloyd Austin testimony was just brutal yesterday.
Yeah.
You know what it shows? A lack of seriousness.
No, it really is. It's even worse than quiet quitting. It's that I'm not even going to quit. I'm just not. There's no accountability, but also no respect for the position. Right? Mm-hmm. Either from the top down or from the person who's supposed to be doing that job to his superiors. It's all about the job at hand. It's all about being accountable because it's all about national security, and everything that happens to you, it's critical that the line of communication stay constant and unquestioned.
We'll get to some of the audio from that. And James Comer says the impeachment inquiry is moving to the next phase, which will be public hearings. Because remember, the Democrats and Hunter Biden screamed, we want to do public hearings, public hearings, public hearings.
Yeah.
And the Republicans said, okay, fine, you can do a public hearing. We'll first do this when you're under oath, and this is more of a legal setting where the lawyers ask you a question, and then we'll let you, because you're so confident, come before the public. Whoa! Now the Democrats and Hunter Biden's lawyer is backing off.
Yeah.
On wanting any public hearings. So public hearings aren't necessary. Everything you want to know, you heard in the deposition.
Remember that day when he walks in and sits down with his attorneys? And that was just weird. That was just weird. That was just creepy. And then his eyes, turning from side to side, going like he's watching everyone. And the one Don Johnson-looking attorney. I mean, it's just weird. The whole thing is just bizarre.
It really is. I know. It's like a soap opera.
It is.
We'll get to that and more on the way.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Welcome to a Friday.
Hey, happy March, everybody.
Yeah.
In like a lion, out like a steak.
March forward.
It lean into March and lean forward, Listen, just keep listening to Red Eye Radio.
That was the dumbest. Dumbest ever from MSNBC, right? Do they still use that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, they finally dropped that?
I think
lean forward.
I think once the laughter died down, they dropped it.
We'll talk about Rachel Maddow. Boy, man, she's just losing it.
Yeah.
But we'll get to the whole thing on the Supreme Court looking at immunity and the response from the left.
Mm-hmm.
But first, we've got to play some audio here from
Okay.
Lloyd Austin appearing before the House yesterday.
Oh,
on the
man,
unannounced hospitalization.
Bad. This was bad. It just got worse.
Oh, it just kept getting
like,
worse.
Worse. It was a situation that I think a lot of people had kind of put maybe even beyond the back burner. And this is why he should be held responsible. He should have been up there answering questions. But man, it brought it right to the surface again. And he himself demonstrated, we weren't hearing from him during the whole thing, but we knew what happened. And hearing from him yesterday
made it worse.
Just made it so much worse.
I'm saying it was one of the worst days, Biden going to the border, it was a bad day for the administration yesterday.
Yeah.
But I want to play, this is where Representative Nancy Mace has some questions for him. Here we go.
South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Secretary Austin, for being with us today. Cancer is a serious illness, and we wish you the best in your recovery. I've been disappointed today in some of the responses. I do want to ask a question: when did you first receive your diagnosis?
It was early December.
And then who did you tell? Did you tell your staff when you received the diagnosis?
I didn't. Again, as I said earlier.
Did you tell your staff you received the diagnosis, yes or no?
No, I did not.
Okay. When did you learn that you needed surgery?
Well, as soon as that diagnosis was made, you have.
Okay, and then when did you tell your staff you needed surgery? When you found out you needed surgery, did you then inform your staff that you needed surgery?
I didn't tell my staff that I needed surgery.
When did you schedule the surgery?
It was mid-December.
Okay, and that was the December 22nd surgery?
Yes.
When you scheduled the surgery, did you when you go under surgery for prostate cancer, do you need to be totally knocked out, right? You can't be awake for the surgery. You have to be totally unconscious,
right?
And incapacitated, right? Yes or no?
That's right.
Okay, thank you. And then the date of the first surgery was December 22nd. At what point did you tell your staff you were going under the knife and going to be unconscious and incapacitated?
Again,
Did you tell your staff that you were in the hospital and going to be under the knife?
I have admitted that I didn't get this right. I should have notified the president of my my cancer diagnosis and my.
So you didn't inform your staff in December when you had the December surgery that you were going to be incapacitated at all?
I knew I was going to be incapacitated, and I transferred authorities to the deputy secretary.
And then they had this emergency event. Well, that was January 1?
That's correct.
What time of day did that happen?
Late afternoon.
And then did you tell your staff late afternoon when it happened what was happening?
I didn't. My concern there was getting to the hospital.
You did not tell your staff that you were on the way to the hospital?
That's right.
Okay. When did your staff find out you were at the hospital?
I don't know when.
You don't know when you told your staff that you were at the hospital? Are you kidding me?
Again, as a patient in the hospital undergoing
evaluation. Okay, let me just back up. I have a minute and a half. If any American worker did what you did, they would be fired. And they aren't the number 2 in the chain of command of the greatest and most lethal fighting force in the world. And here you are. You're not informing anybody on your staff that this is happening, let alone the President of the United States, let alone the delay to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, let alone the delay to the Deputy Secretary. What happens? Now, I didn't serve. Most of my family has served. So can you please tell me in just a few seconds, when a soldier goes AWOL, when they wear the uniform, when they put their lives on the line for our nation, for you, what happens when they go AWOL? What is the punishment?
Well, I wouldn't equate my going to the hospital and receiving treatment
being incapacitated as a secretary here, yes, is going AWOL. So you don't equate disappearing, being incapacitated with being AWOL.
I didn't disappear. I was in a military
you didn't tell your staff.
in Washington,
D.C. You just testified you didn't tell your staff. Did you not? You just testified. What happens when a soldier goes AWOL? I have 20 seconds. What happens when a soldier goes AWOL?
We have to realize that, I have a fairly large...
Are they honorably or dishonorably discharged? Are they put into the brig? Are they... What happens? Seriously, you're not even answering the questions. I'm not going to rest until someone, we should not rest, until someone is held accountable.
Just amazing.
It just got worse with every passing second. Just every passing second making it worse. And by the way, the questioning was right on point there. Because you went AWOL. You didn't tell anybody. Of all the things you should be telling everybody, it is of your physical state and also when you're going to be under the knife, and you take that right there is of the utmost importance, because you know of the risks involved. You take every single measure to make sure that everything is taken care of and that the office of the Secretary of Defense is maintained completely, and you didn't do that. You abandoned your post.
Yeah, I mean, quiet quitting from the Secretary of Defense probably isn't what we want.
No.
And we know, and we wish him well. And like the Republicans said yesterday, we wish you well in your cancer fight.
Certainly.
Remember when this first happened? Remember the first excuse? Well, he's a private man. You lose all privacy when you get to that rank. When it has to do with your job, there is no privacy when it has to do with your job as Secretary of Defense of the United States of America. You don't have any privacy. You have to tell the public and you have to tell the chain of command what is going on with your life if you're not going to be there. And the fact that he didn't do that, and the fact that the White House didn't even know for 3 days, is absolutely mind-boggling and shows you the level of carelessness and the lack of seriousness in the defense secretary and the president and the administration.
Well, and quite frankly, should we expect anything else from a president and his administration who cares nothing about national defense? If you care nothing about it, then the Secretary of Defense is irrelevant. That's what you're seeing here. And Austin needs to be gone. Now, the problem is, who are you going to put in his place? Because the commander-in-chief still remains at least until January 20th of next year.
Let's go to Elise Stefanik. She asked questions yesterday.
New York, Ms. Stefanik.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the morning of January 4th, Mr. Secretary, you were in the critical care unit. The acting Secretary of Defense was vacationing in Puerto Rico, and President Biden was unaware that you were not in the chain of command. Now, as you know, I represent Fort Drum in the 10th Mountain Division, which you know well. Thank you for your service there in the North Country. But on this same date of January 4th, do you know how many 10th Mountain Division soldiers were deployed and are still deployed today in Iraq and Syria in support of Operation Inherent Resolve?
I know that they are deployed. I don't know what the number is.
It's just over 2,500. And on January 4th, at approximately 4 a.m. our time, the U.S. carried out a significant strike against a senior Iranian-backed leader in Iraq, correct?
That's correct.
And because President Biden did not know you were outside of the chain of command during this U.S. strike, if Iran or its proxies in Iraq or Syria had carried out a retaliatory strike against 10th Mountain Division soldiers, the president's chain of command would have and could have broken down, potentially delaying presidential orders to protect lives of American forces, constituents that I represent. Do you understand why this is unacceptable to the American people and to those military families?
Before we even get to the answer here, the fact that that question has to be asked, you're fired.
Yep. I mean, it was on every front, on basically every question. These are very basic questions. Gary, anybody knows this. In any setting, much less the Secretary of Defense. If something's going on with you, you're going to have to contact your employer. You're not going to be around. You're going to go missing, and people are going to ask questions. And when you're the Secretary of the Defense of the United States, all of those questions are going to require some very clear answers. And the fact that you didn't provide those, you didn't reach out ahead of time and fill that gap and say, listen, here's what's going on. I want you to know. And with the diagnosis, I can't imagine being in that situation, but it requires the job. My prayers are with you for a full recovery. The job requires you, for the safety of this nation, to communicate from that point on. This is what's going on. From your staff all the way up to the commander-in-chief, everyone needs to know what I'm going through.
Right.
So that way there will be days where if something happens, the deputy secretary will, of course, have the authority and will be able to communicate effectively with the White House, making sure we don't miss one step.
I mean, what's mind-boggling about it is the timeline laid out was that he knew he had to get the operation early December. So you're talking like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And he never informed any of his staff.
Nope.
And the other point to look at is if you can't effectively communicate something that cuts off the chain of command for the national defense of the United States, and it's simply because I've got a serious illness.
Yeah.
And you don't tell anybody.
Right.
Then what is the line of communication on every other important thing going on in the Pentagon? The perception is you people in the Pentagon are completely clueless, and because it goes right to the top. And if the top guy is completely clueless, what are the people below him like?
He sets the culture for the entire Pentagon.
Well, here's the point. He's out. He's not telling anybody. Nobody's asking any questions. By the time that he goes back in, the president still doesn't know about this. His assistant is vacationing in Puerto Rico. Nobody has any idea what the other person is doing.
We're carrying out missions, by the way, during those days against Iranian proxies.
Let's finish. Let's get to his response here, and then more of this.
Well, thanks. First of all, I would say that when we're attacked, we have the right to defend ourselves and respond immediately.
Okay, now he's changing the topic. That wasn't the question.
If it's a local attack, if a strike is warranted, then recommendations need to be provided to the president. Those recommendations come through from me, and after I've consulted with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs and also the combatant commander. The deputy secretary would have done the same thing, and she has all of the capabilities and situational awareness to do that.
Except the president wasn't aware. The president of the United States was not aware that you were not in the chain of command. So God forbid there was a retaliatory strike. That would have caused potential delays, and it is unacceptable. Let me ask you this. What disciplinary action would a junior service member face if he or she failed to properly notify their chain of command and failed to report for duty?
If a service member was in a hospital, I think the chain of command would be concerned about why they were in a hospital and make sure that they're doing the right things to take care of them and their families.
But don't you think it's their responsibility to notify their commanding officer?
I think
the answer is yes.
Possible, yes. In my case, I would expect that my organization would do the right things to notify senior leaders if I am the patient in the hospital.
How would they know?
It is unacceptable, and you have admitted as such that there was a breakdown in communication with the President of the United States. And I highlight the exact time, 4 a.m. January 4th, when you consider 10th Mountain Division soldiers and the potential for a retaliatory attack. That breakdown is unacceptable. And you said something very important. You said there was never a break in command and control. But yet the President of the United States was not aware that you were outside of the chain of the command. So is the President not a part of this command and control? Don't you believe that the Commander-in-Chief and the SecDef, that is critical for command and control?
He is clearly at the top of the chain in terms of command and control. But what's important is that we provide him with credible options.
Okay, shut up now. Just shut up.
Honestly,
shut up. You're fired.
Stop talking.
Yeah, stop talking. My God. By the way, Republicans, I understand the point you're trying to bring up by saying what would happen to a soldier. But a soldier is one out of hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of other soldiers. He's the Secretary of Defense.
Unreal. By the way, for all of our enemies to see, on full display yesterday. That's pathetic.
Unbelievable.
It really is.
And it runs throughout this entire administration.
Yep, top to bottom.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on roadside inspections. Roadside inspections all begin with the driver interview, during which the officer will gather basic information from the driver and prepare the driver for the inspection. The officer will also be evaluating the driver, determining if the driver can speak English, is under the influence of anything, has an illness, or is fatigued. The officer will ask the driver for required documents, including vehicle and driver credentials, the driver's log, and shipment paperwork. The officer may also conduct a vehicle inspection. Before beginning the inspection, the officer will take steps to make sure the inspection can be done safely. These include chalking the wheels, wearing personal protective equipment, and explaining what will be required of the driver. The driver needs to pay close attention to these instructions so that the vehicle inspection can be conducted in a manner that is safe for the inspection official. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller & Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know, it goes through this administration, and I was trying to find words for it with you earlier, and I just said, you know, when you see Secretary of Defense Austin, these people just don't think normally.
No, they don't. They don't. You know, because he was saying that he felt like the administration and the staff would be concerned with the Secretary of Defense taking care of himself and his family.
They didn't know.
They had no idea, number one. And number two, well, you mentioned chain of command is what he said. Well, no, the chain of command relates to the job. While personally they may have concerns for your health, I'm sure. But the greater concern for the nation is the job at hand, and you failed to communicate.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer said the impeachment inquiry against President Biden will move into its next phase, including Hunter Biden testifying publicly during an open hearing. However, late Wednesday, Hunter's attorney seemed to cast doubt on that, saying in a statement, the transcripts of the witnesses who have been called to date, including Hunter's, make it obvious that there's nothing left to ask Answer, say, or do. This illegitimate inquiry should have ended long before their star witness was indicted for lying, but it wasn't. Now that Hunter has put this partisan conspiracy to the lie that it is on the record under oath, the political charade should finally come to an end. Wow, what a change. Because before it was, this is all BS. Let Hunter testify publicly.
Remember, I mean, he walked into the room with his lawyers going, hey, I'm here. And Democrats on that day were going, hey, come on. The guy's not afraid of anything. And now they're going, hey, maybe no. Maybe, maybe no. Wow. I got to wonder is there an entire list of people who are smoking crack? How does it go from that? What remember that day? Prominent Democrats. Was Goldman one of them? Talking to the media. I think we may have played some comments by him. When on the day that Hunter walked into the hearing with his lawyers.
Oh, I can't remember.
Yeah, but Democrats on that day, there were a handful of them going, hey, look, he's not afraid of anything. Come on. Let him do this, but he wants to do it publicly. And now it's, no, we can't have that. What changed, and what were they thinking back then when they were talking about promoting him testifying publicly? What did they think they were going to win? How did they think this was going to go? It's like zero self-awareness. From Austin and the president being on the border yesterday, major missteps, to now this reversal on the Democrats, which, by the way, should have always been the case. Listen, if you're a Democrat, hey, he did nothing wrong. Love is love. He just loves his dad. He loves his dad so much he just wanted to sell the illusion of influence and smoke some crack. Is there anything wrong with that? But they didn't even, I mean, it's like their own playbook is gone and there's zero self-awareness. None.
Well, we now know because he acknowledged that the 10% was actually referring to Joe Biden, but it was the business people, not him, that it was ridiculous, that there was nothing to do with the 10%. And then they got into, what else here? Did they also get into that his father was not sitting next to him when he sent that WhatsApp message.
Right.
And so everything, now you see the goalposts slowly moving because remember, originally Biden knew nothing and nothing was done wrong. The laptop, because by acknowledging it, he's acknowledging that the laptop is legit. Right. By acknowledging the things he acknowledged in it, we now know that the laptop was legit, which they have said over and over again it was not. In fact, Goldman and Raskin, talking about the fact that the laptop and everything was still talking about Russia disinformation and was hacked by the Russians. Still talking about all that's gone. All that's gone after his testimony there.
Right.
Now Comer saying no, we've got the money tie-in, and what it might seem to be happening here is the fact that they keep moving the goalposts to protect the president. Because it doesn't matter whether the president actually benefited himself. If the family benefited, it's still a problem. If the family benefited and Joe knew the family was benefiting, that's why he was there. He made the appearance to say, hey, I'm here for you. It doesn't matter whether Joe Biden got money out of it. What matters is the family was enriched. There's no difference in bribery.
Yeah.
About whether the family. Yeah. But we're getting closer to and closer to, because we played Goldman the other day the hearing wasn't even an hour old. You could there's nothing there. There's nothing there. It shows it's obvious that these were totally legitimate business practices. And we asked, and then he went on to something else. We go, no. If you say it's totally legit and you can win the case right now because you can tell me what business Jim and Hunter Biden were in, well, then you can put this to rest right now.
Right.
Just don't say it's obvious that they were in, that they were in a legitimate business. What's the business? We still don't know what business that they were in.
Right.
And that's what keeps this thing moving, and that's what the Democrats have not been able to argue. What business were they in? Why did the entire Biden family, was it 9, 10, 11 of them, get money through these bank accounts, through these corporate LLCs? That's the one thing that they can't explain.
Right.
What business were you in?
Right.
Was that question specifically asked to Hunter? What business were you in?
I was trying to go through it. And I know there's a ton of transcript here, and Professor Margot Cleveland posted a really great thread yesterday on her X page and last evening. And I was trying to go through, in fact, searching some of what she was posting, if that question was directly asked.
I saw that last night. I haven't got a chance to read it, and you've been reading it during the show.
Well, I was reading it as she was posting a lot of it.
Okay.
And trying to go through, because there were questions that I was looking for. And, one of the questions we brought up earlier this week, okay, you say your father wasn't involved. Did he benefit in any way? But, Hunter came out, and in some of his answers, he came out, he did not benefit in any way, blah, 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 blah. Look, as Margot Cleveland pointed out, he contradicts himself, Hunter, a number of times here, and it demonstrates that he's lying. And there's proof, including Hunter's own emails. This whole thing of, sorry about that. I was on crack at the time. I was really high at the time, is not going to fly. Sorry, it isn't. The timeline of, and this is what I was thinking as I'm reading the thread from Margot Cleveland. I'm thinking, okay, timeline of all of these messages that were being sent, what we know, including the text message, I'm sitting here with my father, and then what happened after that, too. Paired with the timeline of bank deposits. We've been saying follow the money, but also now, thanks to Hunter, we've got so much information where we can take those communications and then the bank records and do the correlation. That's not hard at all. And you see that, that Hunter's going to lie. It's in the blood.
Oh, yeah.
You can't, and the arrogance. One answer, one response, or answer to a question was all about how Joe Biden, woke up one day and got the call that his wife and daughter had been killed, and years later his son died. And hold on a second, what does that have to do with any of this?
Nothing.
Trying to make the case nothing nefarious is going on here, and he woke up one day and got a phone call that his wife and daughter were killed, and years later that my brother died. Well, okay, sorry, you got off track there. We're talking about these specific items, and trying to gain empathy is not going to work for you. People can feel that kind of pain for any loss and also hold someone accountable. It's possible. I've seen people do it. And it's just ridiculous right now that we're even, at this point, because I fully expected the Hunter. I mean, if you were going to go back a year and a half, I fully expected Hunter was not going to respond at all. There was going to be, nothing was wrong. You just deny, 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 deny. The problem with that is the evidence is mounting day after day after day after day. And the only thing you can do, as you mentioned before, and we talked about it, the only thing you can do is throw yourself under the bus to protect the sitting president, but that's not going to last too long either.
Well, Comer stressed that Hunter and his attorneys have demanded a public hearing following the deposition, just as I said when we said we were going to do the deposition first and have a public hearing next. So I think that the public hearing hopefully will clear up some of the discrepancies, and now Hunter is saying he doesn't want a public hearing. Look, we're still at the same place that we were before.
Yep.
Nobody can tell us what business the Bidens were in.
Right.
The Democrats' defense is that it was an illusion of influence, which means that you are to believe two things. Either Joe Biden knew what the family was doing and knew what his son was doing and knew what his brother was doing over a period of a decade, and it was enriching his family, but he said, I don't want it to touch me, so don't give me any cash. Enriching my family is fine. What the pay for play is, whether it was, Burisma, whether it was the prosecutor for CFEC, what it was specifically, not sure for CFEC yet. For the other countries, again, don't have all the information on that. So I will withhold comment, but either Biden knew and benefited, or Biden knew and didn't personally benefit. There's no difference in the law. It would still be a bribe.
Right.
Or the other scenario, what that the Democrats and the media have promoted without actually, when they promote it, without actually realizing what they're saying, and that is, if it was an illusion of influence, it meant that Jim and Hunter were telling foreign governments and foreign intelligence agencies and their proxy companies that Joe Biden will do something for you. He will take care of you. You need to pay us millions upon millions of dollars. And they did so consistently over a significant period of time, which they then distributed to other family members. And Joe had no idea, yet the whole family knew that they were attempting to destroy the legacy of Joe Biden, who simply loved them.
Right. It's got to be one of those.
Does anybody believe that that's plausible? And that's the interesting thing. When Democrats or the media do that, when they say an illusion of influence, I don't think they understand what they're saying. They're saying that it's not Joe that's crooked. It's the entire family is crooked and trying to destroy Joe's legacy.
Exactly. And now his presidency.
Yes. Yeah.
Look, they're the ones telling the story if that's what they want you to believe.
Right.
I don't buy it. But those are your possibilities.
The public doesn't buy it.
They don't buy it at all.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carney, and I'm Gary McNamara. Yeah, what will show the truth in this entire thing is the actual evidence and the money trail and all that, not what Hunter Biden says and doesn't say, because when Hunter Biden said he never, ever once involved his father in his business, that can be discredited by something that everybody here knows right now, and that's the WhatsApp message.
Yep.
My father is here, sitting next to me, and you'll feel the full weight of my father if you don't pay up.
Yeah.
You just involved your father in your business.
Yep.
What do you think that is?
Right.
Well, he didn't get any money. he didn't get any money. The whole family enriched himself. That's my argument. Or he didn't discuss the specifics. No, but you used him. You used him as the mob enforcer.
Right.
My father will come down on you. What do you mean you didn't use your father in your business at all? Yes, you did. You used him as the threat of enforcement to collect what you believed you were owed for services that nobody can identify.
Oh, my gosh. Both, with this transcript coming out, and his dad being at the border yesterday, both of them were stepping in it at the same time on the same day.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.